The world may be closer to a major international crisis than most people realize. And if you spent the last 24 hours scrolling through headlines, memes, celebrity drama, or political distractions, you probably missed what quietly happened in the Middle East. A U.S. military drone reportedly went down. Multiple energy and nuclear-related facilities suddenly exploded across different countries. Governments started issuing contradictory statements. Financial markets reacted nervously. And behind the scenes, world leaders are scrambling to stop a situation that could spiral completely out of control. But here's the part that should concern everyone watching this video. The deeper the crisis becomes, the louder the distractions seem to get. Because in moments of international tension, information becomes a battlefield of its own. And right now, confusion is spreading faster than facts. The first reports came quietly, not from major American television networks, not from dramatic White House announcements, but from regional outlets, military monitoring accounts, and open-source intelligence analysts tracking unusual activity in the Middle East. According to multiple circulating reports, a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone was allegedly shot down over Yemen. Now, officially, confirmation remained unclear at first. Videos and images began spreading online showing burning wreckage that analysts claimed matched the structure of a Reaper drone. And if true, this wasn't a small incident. The MQ-9 Reaper is one of America's most advanced unmanned aircraft systems, a drone heavily used for surveillance and military operations across conflict zones. These systems cost tens of millions of dollars each. But the real issue wasn't just the aircraft itself. It was what the event symbolized. Because when advanced American military assets begin falling out of the sky in unstable regions, it sends a message far beyond the battlefield. It signals escalation, and escalation creates fear, not just among governments, among investors, energy markets, global businesses, and ordinary people worried about what happens next. At almost the same time, reports started emerging about explosions and fires connected to energy infrastructure across multiple countries. An incident involving a nuclear-related facility in the United Arab Emirates. A massive explosion reported near a sensitive site in Israel. An oil and gas facility fire in Venezuela. Individually, governments described these events as manageable accidents, technical incidents, or isolated attacks. But collectively, people started asking difficult questions. Why were so many critical facilities suddenly experiencing explosions, fires, or drone-related incidents all at once? And perhaps more importantly, how much of the truth was the public actually being told? That uncertainty became dangerous very quickly. Because once people lose trust in official explanations during international crises, speculation fills the vacuum instantly. Social media exploded with theories. Some blamed covert military operations. Others warned about retaliation attacks. Some believed governments were hiding larger conflicts already happening behind the scenes. And while many online claims remain impossible to verify, one thing became undeniable. Global tension was rising fast. Then came another development that made the situation even more explosive. Reports surfaced claiming American officials were discussing stronger military positioning across the region, while simultaneously increasing pressure on allies to take larger roles in potential future operations. That matters because history shows something very important. Conflicts rarely become global all at once. They escalate gradually. One incident, one retaliation, one military movement, one political speech, and suddenly countries find themselves trapped inside cycles that become harder and harder to stop. Meanwhile, ordinary people sitting thousands of miles away often don't realize how serious things are until economic consequences begin hitting home. And those consequences may already be starting. Oil markets immediately became nervous. Bond yields climbed. Mortgage rates remained elevated. Investors started moving cautiously again. Because the Middle East is not just another region politically. It sits near some of the most strategically important energy routes on Earth. Whenever instability threatens those routes, global markets react instantly. Gas prices, shipping costs, inflation, supply chains, everything becomes vulnerable. That's why even rumors of broader regional conflict can shake the global economy within hours. And right now, investors appear deeply uncertain about where things are heading. But perhaps the strangest part of this entire situation has been the contrast between the seriousness of global events and the tone of political messaging surrounding them. While reports of drone attacks, military tensions, and explosions spread internationally. Political distractions flooded social media at the same time. Memes, AI-generated images, political insults, spectacle. Some critics argue this is intentional, that modern politics increasingly functions through distraction cycles designed to dominate attention, while more serious developments receive less focus. Whether people agree with that idea or not, the effect is undeniable. The average person now struggles to separate real crises from online noise. And in moments of geopolitical instability, that confusion becomes dangerous, because democracies depend on informed citizens understanding what's actually happening in the world around them. Now let's talk about Cuba for a moment, because another controversial narrative suddenly appeared during all of this. Claims began circulating that Cuba was somehow developing or preparing drone threats near Florida. The reports generated immediate political reaction online, but local officials reportedly seemed caught off guard by the sudden alarm. That contradiction fueled even more skepticism. Critics questioned whether these narratives were based on real intelligence concerns, or whether they were part of broader political positioning during a tense international moment. And honestly, situations like this reveal how quickly fear can spread once military language enters public discourse. The moment words like threat, drones, national security, or military response start dominating headlines, emotions escalate rapidly. People become anxious, markets react, politicians posture more aggressively, and suddenly diplomacy becomes much harder. At the same time, tensions involving Iran continued dominating strategic discussions worldwide. Iranian officials issued increasingly aggressive warnings. American political figures responded with stronger rhetoric. Regional allies grew more nervous, and military analysts openly debated whether the situation was moving closer toward direct confrontation. That possibility terrifies global markets for one simple reason. Nobody truly knows how large-scale conflict in that region would unfold anymore. Modern warfare no longer looks like old wars. It involves drones, cyber attacks, infrastructure sabotage, energy disruption, financial pressure, proxy conflicts, and social media information warfare happening simultaneously. That creates enormous unpredictability. And unpredictability is poison for economic stability. One of the most revealing details may actually be how financial markets responded behind the scenes. Treasury yields climbed sharply. Investors began questioning future interest rate cuts. Energy volatility increased, and concerns about inflation started rising again. These aren't just numbers economists discuss on television. They directly affect ordinary people. Mortgage rates, car loans, business borrowing, consumer prices, retirement accounts. When geopolitical instability grows, financial pressure spreads quietly into everyday life very quickly. That's why global crises feel distant at first, until suddenly they don't. And underneath all of this sits an even larger issue many people feel increasingly uncomfortable discussing openly. Trust. Trust in governments. Trust in media. Trust in official explanations. Because once public trust starts collapsing during moments of international tension, fear spreads much faster than facts. People stop knowing who to believe. Every statement becomes questioned. Every event becomes politicized. Every narrative gets filtered through tribal political battles instead of objective reality. And that creates an environment where confusion itself becomes a weapon. Now, to be fair, not every dramatic online claim turns out true. Social media thrives on exaggeration, panic, and emotional reactions. Videos circulate without verification. Rumors spread faster than investigations. That's why careful reporting matters so much during unstable moments. But dismissing everything as fake panic can become dangerous too, because history repeatedly shows that major crises often begin quietly while most people are distracted elsewhere. And the combination of military incidents, infrastructure disruptions, economic instability, and escalating rhetoric happening simultaneously right now deserves serious attention. The world feels increasingly unstable because global systems themselves are under strain. Wars, inflation, energy insecurity, political polarization, economic competition, cyber warfare, artificial intelligence, information manipulation. All of it is colliding at the same time, and ordinary people everywhere are starting to feel the pressure emotionally. That's why moments like this matter beyond politics. People want stability. They want honesty. They want competent leadership capable of lowering tensions instead of constantly inflaming them. Because once geopolitical crises begin escalating emotionally, rational decision-making becomes much harder for everybody involved. And perhaps the scariest part is how quickly situations can spiral once multiple countries start reacting emotionally instead of strategically. One drone incident becomes retaliation. Retaliation becomes escalation. Escalation creates panic. Panic damages markets. Economic pressure increases political pressure. And suddenly world leaders become trapped inside momentum they no longer fully control. Right now, nobody knows exactly where this situation ends. Maybe tensions cool down. Maybe diplomacy wins. Maybe these incidents remain isolated. Or maybe historians someday look back at this exact moment as the point where global instability entered an entirely more dangerous phase. But one thing is already becoming clear. The world is entering a period where economic stability, military tensions, and political narratives are becoming deeply interconnected. And in that kind of environment, confusion itself becomes one of the most powerful forces shaping public perception. That's why paying attention matters more than ever. Not to panic, not to spread fear, but to understand that behind the noise, distractions, and political theater, very real geopolitical shifts may already be happening in real time. And the consequences of those shifts could eventually affect everyone.